All right, everyone, back at Hollywood Park. This is now a 3-game mix, PLO, PLO 8, which is PLO high-low, and $15 PLO double board bomb pot. So I'm in for 1,000, which is the max. Let's get into it. First playable hand comes about 15 minutes into the session. We're playing PLO 8 when I look down at ace, 6-3, single suited in the cutoff. There's an early position limp. Folds to me, I make a 20, and there are 3 callers. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes down king, jack, 8 with 2 hearts. When action checks to me, I also check. So still going 4 ways to a turn. The turn brings one of the best cards in the deck for us in the deuce of clubs, now giving us the nut draw. Small blind now leads for 50. 1 caller to me, and you can definitely make the case for raising here, but I elect to just call. So we're going 3 ways to a river. So the river brings one of the worst cards in the deck in the 9 of hearts. So pretty much everything gets there except for the 2 draws that I have. And checks over to the middle position player who now leads for 160. And I fold and the other player folds, so he's going to take it down. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at ace, jack, jack 4, double suited in the big blind. We go to flops of 4-3-3 with 2 hearts and 6-5-4 with 2 diamonds. Checks to me, I check, and action checks through. So still going 8 ways to a couple turns. The turns bring a 10 of hearts on the top and a deuce of diamonds on the bottom. Checks to me, I bet 30, and there are 2 callers. So we're going 3 ways to a couple rivers. The rivers bring a king of hearts on the top and 7 of hearts on the bottom. This time I want to size up. Most likely not going to have the best hand on the top, so I don't mind forcing people off of a chop. So I bet 175. The next player thinks a bit before tossing in some chips for a call. The late position player ends up tanking for a little bit before shrugging and folding. I turn it over and the player doesn't look too happy about it, and he ends up turning over the queen 10 of diamonds. So he had a pair of 10s on top and the lower flush on the bottom. And the late position player said he would have won the top board. Don't know what he had, but happy to scoop a nice one here. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at 9-8-8-7, single suited in middle position. We go to flops of jack 6-5 with 2 clubs and 10-9-5 rainbow. When action checks to me, I bet 20, and there are 3 callers, so we're going 4 ways to a couple turns. The turns bring a queen of hearts on the top and a jack of spades on the bottom, so we make a straight, but it's the 3rd best straight. So I check over to a late position player who bets 200. So still have the combo draw on the top, but you know, if this player, say, has a higher straight with higher clubs, drawing pretty thin. So I end up folding and everyone else folds as well. So he's going to take this one down. 15 minutes after the previous hand, about an hour into the session, I look down at king, queen, 10-3, single suit in the cutoff. We go to flops of ace, king, jack with 2 clubs and ace, 9-4 rainbow. When action checks to me, I bet 20. The button then makes it 180. Folds over to Haven, who makes the call, and I also make the call. So we're going 3 ways to a couple turns. The turns bring a 4 of spades on the top and deuce of hearts on the bottom. Haven now leads for full pot, and I've played with Haven before. He's a cool guy, pretty tight, solid player, so this lets me know that he either has the wheel on the bottom. Let's say he had a hand such as queen 5-3-2, maybe with the queen high flush draw. But more than likely, this means that he also has queen 10 and was just waiting for a safe turn card, which is exactly what happened. So I don't really love any of the options here. Folding seems kind of tight. Calling, most of my stacks seems kind of weird as well. So I guess I just got kind of hung up on the fact that I do have the nut flush draw on top. In fact, a royal flush draw, and there's only 1 dead club, the 4 of clubs on the bottom. Wondering what you guys would have done in this situation, but I ended up just shoving. The button called off for less, and Haven, of course, called as well. We have a small side pot between us two, and we're going 3 ways to a couple rivers. The rivers bring a king of spades on the top and a 9 of hearts on the bottom. And it might be hard to see from the video, but the button ended up showing queen 10, 6-3, all diamonds. Haven, as expected, showed queen 10 as well with queen 10, 9-7. So this is actually my first situation ever where I'm actually going to get 1/6. As obviously we're each going to get a 1/3 for the top, and then Haven is going to scoop the bottom with 3 9s. So Haven's going to win a pretty nice pot here. I top up $500 and get moved to the main table. We're now playing Omaha 8 when I look down at 9-9-7-3 single suit in the big blind. We end up going 5 ways, $10 a piece to a flop of 9-4-3 with 2 hearts. So I just want to say this is a pretty bad hand. I only called because I was in the big blind and under the gun made it $10. So it was only $5 for me to call. But even flopping top set here, you definitely have to tread very lightly, as you know, a lot of times you are going to be a pretty huge underdog. Say if someone has like ace deuce 5 with hearts. So I check, the under the gun player then bets 25, one caller, and I also call, just kind of looking for a safe turn card. So we're going 3 ways to a turn. The turn brings a 7 of spades. Obviously it's never good to pair every single card in your hand. So I check over to the under the gun player who bets 100. Late position player only has 200 left. He puts everything in the middle. And this is really the problem with sets in Omaha 8 is, you know, really you're just kind of hoping and praying, especially when the low comes in. I'm hoping that nobody has 5-6, and, you know, because somebody's going to obviously have ace deuce, ace 5 here, where I can't win the low, but they can end up winning the high with either a flush or some kind of straight. So for those reasons, I end up folding, and the under the gun player ends up making the call. So they're going heads up to a river. The river ended up bringing the deuce of spades. Under the gun ended up turning over ace jack 8-5. The late position player had ace king 10 deuce. So under the gun rivers the wheel and scoops the pot. Shortly after the previous hand, I looked down at ace 10 8-5 single suited middle position. We go to flops of king 7-4 all hearts and ace jack 5 rainbow. When action checks to me, I bet 30, and there's only one caller, so we're going heads up to a couple turns. The turns bring a queen of spades on the top and 10 of diamonds on the bottom. This time I size up to 125 and my opponent folds, so we take this one down.
What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So just taking a second to let you guys know that Josh and I are going to be back at the Hard Rock Hollywood from April 10th through the 17th. That's for their next tournament series. I'll put a link down below. But as I've mentioned in the past, they really have some of the best mixed games in the country. All of them are pretty small buy-ins, anywhere from like $400 to $600. They have multiple mixed game tournaments pretty much every day. They do a really good job of bracketing them. So you'll have one at, you know, say around noon, then you'll have another one at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. Jason, the poker room director, he's a mixed game fan himself, and you can definitely tell when he makes the schedule. So if you see Josh or I, you know, feel free to, you know, come up to us, say hi, and drinks are on us. So looking forward to seeing you guys out there, and let's get back into the action.
Here we look down at king 7-6-6 single suit in the cutoff. We go to flops of ace 6-3 rainbow and 9-9-8 rainbow. The big blind now leads for full pot of 120. I make the call, and there are 2 callers behind, so we're going 4 ways to a couple turns. The turns bring the king of hearts on the top and deuce of diamonds on the bottom. When action checks to me, I bet 300, and there are 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a couple rivers. The rivers bring a deuce of clubs on the top and 5 clubs on the bottom. My opponent checks. It's going to be pretty hard to get scooped here on both against one opponent, as the other player is all in. So I go ahead and put everything in the middle. He ends up making the call, and he ends up turning over the queen jack 9-5. So he has the full house. The other player who's all in turns over the 10-9-5-3. So they both have the full house on the bottom, and we're going to take the top with 3 of kind. We go card dead for a little bit. This hand's about 2.5 hours into the session when I look down at ace queen jack 9 single suited middle position in a straddled pot. When it folds to me, I make it 25, and there are 4 callers. So we're going 5 ways to a flop. The flop comes down king jack deuce with 2 diamonds, and when it checks to me, I bet 60, and we get 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a turn. The turn brings a 4 of clubs, bringing in the backdoor flush draw, and this is a situation where knowing my opponent influenced my decision. So the player in the 1 seat, you know, I've been at this table about an hour, and I don't think he's folded a single hand, so the guy does not like folding. So, you know, normally if I'm playing at a table where people kind of know how I play, maybe I can try to put a bet here and get someone to fold maybe a king, you know, maybe some kind of like king, queen 10, something like that. But this particular player is not going to fold. So I just end up checking and, you know, planning on calling, you know, a decent amount of bets, but ends up actually checking through. So still going 3 ways to a river. The river brings a 5 of hearts, checks to me, I check. Late position player now bets 180. Other player folds, and I also fold. He ends up tabling his hand. He shows the ace jack 5-3 with the 5-3 of diamonds. So definitely wasn't going to go anywhere on the turn had I bet. So he's going to end up taking this one down. Shortly after the previous hand, we're playing PLO 8. I look down at 5-4 deuce deuce under the gun. I limp. Next player makes it 20. 1 caller, and I also call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace 6-3 rainbow. I check. The original raiser bets 50. Folds to me. I then make it 175 with hands like this, where you have the no bust low and, you have the wheel wrap as well. You definitely want to get as much money in the pot as possible, as you can't lose the low and there's many cards that you can scoop against big hands such as sets. But unfortunately, my opponent folds and we're going to take this one down. About 20 minutes after the previous hand and about 3.5 hours into the session, I look down at Queen, Queen, 10 deuce, single suited in the hijack. We go to flops of Jack 5 deuce with 2 clubs and Queen 5 4 with 2 clubs. When action checks to me, I bet 60 and there are 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a couple turns. The turns bring the ace of spades on the top and 9 of spades on the bottom. When action checks to the player to my right, he leads for the full pot of 300. And this player leading up to this has definitely dumped some chips, so he may be on tilt, so that kind of comes into play here a little bit. And this is pretty similar to the bomb pot I played against Haven earlier, where I also, coincidentally enough, also had Queen 10. So I don't really love just flatting. There are a lot of draws, super wet board on both, so that's out. Folding seems a little too tight. I believe if I folded this hand, the amount of people in the comments that called me a nit would probably triple overnight. So that's definitely out. So the only option left is to go ahead and shove, and maybe I can get this through if the guy to my right is maybe just semi-bluffing with a draw on both boards. So over to the early position player who ends up tanking for over a minute before eventually folding. And the player on my right thinks a bit before tossing the chip for a call. So we're going heads up to a couple rivers. The rivers bring a jack of diamonds on the top and 10 of clubs on the bottom. The opponent ends up turning over Queen 7 4 3 with 3 clubs. So he hit the wheel on the top and ends up rivering a flush on the bottom. So we are unfortunately going to get scooped here. The very next hand, I look down at Ace 5 3 3 single suit in middle position. We go to flops of Ace 10 5 rainbow and 5 4 deuce rainbow. When action checks to me, I bet 50 and we get 1 caller. So we're going heads up to a couple turns. The turns bring a 9 of diamonds on top, 10 of diamonds on bottom. And at this point with a 1-to-1 SPR, I just go ahead and pot it. And my opponent takes a bit, but ends up folding. So don't get any additional action, but happy to win a pot right after getting stacked in that previous hand. I go card dead for an hour. This hand is over 5 hours into the session when I look down at King, King, Queen 6, single suited in middle position. We're now playing PLO 8. There's an early position raise to 15. I call, and there's 1 caller behind. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes out Ace, King 6 rainbow. I bet 25 and we get 1 caller. So we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings a pretty good card for us in the 9 of diamonds, so it doesn't change anything. This time I size up to 80 and my opponent quickly calls. So still going heads up to a river. River brings a 7 of clubs, so it brings in a couple straights. Obviously now the low gets there as well. I check with the intention of probably calling any bet, but my opponent quickly checks back. So I turn it over and we're good. So happy to take down a small pot here. I go card dead for a while. This hand's about an hour and a half after the previous hand. We're playing PLO 8 again when I look down at Ace, Ace, King 8, double suited in the cutoff. There's an early position limp. I make it 20 and there are 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes out King 8 5 with 2 diamonds. I bet 60 and both my opponents fold, so we're going to take this one down. I ended up taking a short break, and as I'm walking back to the table, there are a ton of people surrounding it, including a bunch of floor people, and I'm wondering what the heck's going on when this is the scene I walk back to when quad 4s ended up losing to quad jacks, and everyone's super excited, high-fiving, making calls back home, doing whatever, but I'm a little upset because I realized that I wasn't dealt in the hand. And about 6 years ago, I was playing with my buddy Mark at Commerce when the same situation happened. I wasn't dealt in, and because of that, I wasn't paid. But luckily, Hollywood Park has a pretty cool rule where as long as you don't have a missed blind, which I didn't, then you're eligible for the table share. So the 6 people who didn't have quads, including myself, each got a table share for about $14.60. So that definitely helps ease the pain a little bit, as I'm currently stuck about $1,700. This hand's about 45 minutes after the previous hand. We're just playing regular PLO, and I look down at King 10 8 7 single suit in the hijack and a straddled pot. Early position player makes it 30. I call, and there are 2 callers behind, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes out King 6 5 rainbow. The original raiser makes it 55. 1 caller to me, and at this point, nothing in this session has really gone my way, maybe besides the bad beat jackpot. So sitting here with basically a pot size raise, obviously with top pair, open end straight draw, At this point, I just don't really care. I'm going with the hand, so I pot it for almost my whole stack. The original raiser quickly folds over to the other player. He's sitting there tanking for a while. He tells me he has 2 pair, and he's wondering if I have a set. And I'm just kind of sitting there stone-faced. Honestly, I don't really care. I mean, if he has 2 pair, I mean, it's probably about a coin flip. But he ends up folding. So we take down a little bit small pot here. And they end up processing the bad beat jackpot right after this hand. So, you know, I think I probably would have played a little longer had that not hit. But, you know, it was kind of tired. I was pretty tired. It was a pretty long session. Nothing really went my way, as I mentioned. So we end up racking up shortly after.
What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So today I was in for 2,500, out for 631. So loss of 1869, which I'd have to check my records, but I believe it's one of my largest losses ever. I mean, obviously the 1460 that I got for the bad beat jackpot definitely helps, but you know, it really came down to those 2 bomb pots. I'm definitely curious to know what you guys think of them. So let me know down in the comments below. And if you haven't seen the previous episode, I'll go ahead and link it up here. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.